Looking for a new playmat or some custom sleeves? You can support Magic Untapped in the process by clicking on the affiliate link for Inked Gaming in the description. Alara Reborn is the third set in the Alara block and is the 49th Magic the Gathering expansion overall. It was released on April 30, 2009. The set's story shows the cataclysmic aftermath of Nicol Bolas's violent and selfish plans that were centered around the merging of the 5 shards of the Plane of Alara, an event known as the Conflux. What happens now that the splintered plane has been reformed into one? Well, to find out exactly what and how, you should check out the novel Alara Unbroken by Doug Beyer. It's the only novel for the entire 3-set block. We have a story summary of it in our Shards of Alara video, which can be found in the Retrospectives playlist here on Magic Untapped.
I mean, that's worth watching. It's great.
As for Alara Reborn, the set contains 145 cards and was sold in traditional booster packs, pre-constructed intro pack decks, a fat pack bundle, and, like with the previous set, Conflux, 6-card booster packs as well. Additionally, Wizards of the Coast also released a premium all-foil booster pack that contained not just cards from Alara Reborn, but also cards from Shards of Alara and Conflux as well.
All 3!
The set is the first, and so far only set in the history of the collectible card game that consists entirely of multicolored cards.
Wait, what?
When Bill first came up with a block plan for Alara Reborn, his goal was to be able to get to the point where we did an all-gold set. And everything he had done up to that built to how we can make a set, because you can't start with an all-gold set. You need to have some support stuff in place. And when I say all gold, I mean all gold. There was no land, there was no artifacts that were not multicolored. Everything was a gold card. And that was the theme of the set. We've only had a few gimmicky sets, and then everything is something. Legions was all creatures, and then Alara Reborn was all gold. And when Aaron first took the assignment, I took him aside and I said, Aaron, just so you're aware, this is a lot harder than you would think it would be, maybe at first blush. That there's a lot of resources you're used to having that you're not going to have in an all-gold set. And all-gold sets push you towards cycles, and there's all sorts of just things that are problematic that trying to do an all-gold set. Anyway, Aaron did a fine job. I think it was a very big design challenge.
It is also the last standard legal expansion in Magic to not have at least one Planeswalker card in it.
Is that a fact?
The block's previous mechanics, land cycling, Exalted, Devour, and Unearth, all return in Alara Reborn. Hybrid Mana also makes its return to the set, but with a small twist, as it's the first set in which Hybrid Mana appears alongside conventional mana symbols. In the past, Hybrid was always either on its own or paired with a generic mana cost.
Yes, of course it was.
The set also introduces a new mechanic called Cascade, a mechanic that was well received, but, as Magic the Gathering head designer Mark Rosewater says on his Blogatog Tumblr account, is, quote, developmentally dangerous. Magic senior designer Gavin Verhey explains in his Good Morning Magic vlog.
All the way back in Alara Reborn, when Cascade first came out, it was a very divisive mechanic. You had cards like Bloodbraid Elf and Bituminous Blast determining games at the top level of tournament play. And as you might expect, this drew a lot of ire from competitive players. Having the game determined because you flipped over your Blightning off of your Bloodbraid Elf instead of a Terminate that had no legal targets was a bit too much variance for competitive play. However, on the way other end of the spectrum, at the social or kitchen table level, players were having a great time with Cascade. It was exactly what you wanted to do. You never know what was going to happen when you cast one, and it created some really memorable moments.
When a spell with Cascade is cast, its controller reveals cards from the top of their library until they find a non-land card that costs less than the card with Cascade. They may then play it without paying its mana cost. If that card also has Cascade, the process repeats itself. This mechanic has been regarded as highly powerful. It's still rather popular, and is seen across a variety of formats.
Someone call 911. I want to report a truth bomb.
Cycling, a returning mechanic, is also in Alara Reborn, though with a twist. While appearing on a handful of cards in its typical form, it's also in a cycle of creatures known as Sojourners, each of which has an ability that triggers when put into the graveyard from play or when cycled, such as with Naya Sojourners, placing a +1/+1 counter on target creature when it dies or is cycled. Speaking of cycles, Alara Reborn boasts a whopping 14 of them. Some of the more notable ones include border posts, allied colored artifacts that each have an alternate casting cost that discounts the card to 1 generic mana if you also return a relevant basic land back to your hand. These artifacts all come into play tapped, and can be tapped to add one of each's 2 relevant mana colors to your mana pool, cascading allied colored cycles of rarities common and uncommon. Each of these cards have their own characteristics, but have the cascade ability in common. Shard-colored mythic legendary creatures, each of which cost, at minimum, 1 of each of their respective Shards colors. Of these, the card Sin Triplets is probably the most notable due to its popularity as a commander in EDH.
Yeah, well, it wasn't popular until I made it popular.
As for the individual cards of note found within Alara Reborn, the set has a handful worth making mention of, including Bloodbraid Elf, an uncommon card with Cascade that's an extremely popular inclusion in a number of competitive Modern and Legacy decks, including Red-Green Elves, Cascade Swans, Naya, Zoo, and Domain. Mael's Aria, a card that lets you win the game if you control a creature with power 20 or greater, and can even help you get there. Meddling Mage, a control card that was debuted in Planeshift back in 2001. It's a popular inclusion in human tribal decks. Osali Pride Mage, a popular situational card in Legacy and Modern. Sphinx of the Steel Wind, which was once a popular target for Reanimator decks, though its popularity has waned in the years since its debut, thanks largely to better, more efficient targets being printed. Terminate, a rather good removal spell. Like the card Meddling Mage, it's also a reprint from Planeshift. Thopter Foundry. The card gained popularity due to its amazing synergy with the Future Sight card, Sword of the Meek, the combo resulting in the player creating as many 1/1 flyers and gaining as much life as they can afford, mana-wise. And Violent Outburst, a common Cascade card that sees competitive play in Modern and Legacy, Crashing Footfalls, and Living End decks.
Very useful. Next!
As for Alara Reborn's pre-release and release promo cards, the former is an alternate art foil Dragon Broodmother, which makes red and green dragon tokens, and the latter was the card Knight of New Alara, which makes other multicolored creatures you control bigger.
Bigger is not always better.
So is Alara Reborn a favorite Magic the Gathering set of yours? Whether it is or is not, let us know your thoughts in the comment section below. And thank you for watching. If you'd like to support Magic Untapped, please remember to subscribe to the channel here on YouTube. Also, we have a tip jar on Patreon if you're feeling generous. Thanks again.